Cuyahoga County Council Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, March 28th is now called to order. Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 4:07 p.m. Calling the roll. First, before I call the roll, as a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Now, calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schran. Mr. Schran is absent at the moment. Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. Ms. Turner.
Here.
Ms. Stevens is absent. Ms. Simon.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Council President Jones.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Andrea, has anyone signed in for public comment?
No public comment has been received.
All right. Well, at this time, we're going to have a presentation from Mr. Dave Gilbert, from regarding the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, and again, the funding for the Sports Commission. So, David, if you would come at this time. And please announce your name just before you begin. State.
Excuse me, is your microphone on? Is it green?
The green button.
Green button, give you a green light.
I'll do it again. Sorry about that. Bob Klunk, Chairman and CEO of the Oswald Companies right here in Cleveland, Ohio, but I'm also proud to be the chair of the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission this year and work with David. And I just want to personally come here on behalf of the board and thank all of you for your support all these years of the Sports Commission. It is critical that we continue to have that support to continue our mission, which is driving economic growth throughout the region here. And we've had some stellar years over the past several years, some very big events. This year, while we don't have very many big events, we have a lot of small ones that have made up some pretty significant economic opportunities, which David will cover shortly in a presentation. We have a big year next year coming up with the Women's Final Four, as well as the Senior Pan Am Games, which we are the first city in the United States to ever host them on United States soil. So we can't do it without your support, and I just wanted you to know that we are grateful. It is not taken for granted, and what you do is very important to our continuing our mission. So thank you. I'll turn it over to David.
Council President, I would like the record to reflect that Ms. Conwell is in attendance.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for having me here, and a big thanks to Bob. We have a tremendous board who is a big part of the long-term success of the organization. And the county has been very supportive of our organization for many, many years. We're not here to ask for anything. As far as we are in the administration's budget through economic development for the coming 2 years, I believe. Really just wanted you to know what we're doing and what we're up to, and the kind of work, and ultimately for us it's about return on investment. So I don't know if we have a presentation. I don't know if we'll start. It's not real long, but if we can go on to the next slide. Perfect. Thanks, Joe. So a little bit about who the organization is. I'm not going to go through all of these things. I think if you look at the bottom line, our job, at the end of the day, we're a nonprofit organization. We're an economic development organization that uses the hosting of major sporting events and the competition to host those events to enhance the economy and image of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and all of Northeast Ohio. And we're, as I mentioned, we're about 22 years old. We're a 501c3 organization. I'll talk a little bit about our funding a little later. We are part of a group of organizations like ours. There is a National Association of Sports Commissions. There's over 100 cities that are members. We're one of the 2 or 3 largest of our kind in the country. So we're not a huge organization. We have 13 staff people. Right now we have 17, depending on events that we host. We'll sometimes staff up and staff down, a handful of part-time people. And all the staff is engaged in really 2 primary things. Getting events to say yes to Cleveland and making them better while they're here. We really are structured in a way to provide services to these events so that they are more likely to choose Cleveland. We have a tremendous board of trustees, a lot of leaders in business, civic, government, and sports and media that all really help extend the reach of the organization to allow us to do what we do. We also have what some people call a junior board, we call an associate board, that also takes on a pretty heavy role. And since we started in 2000, we have been directly responsible for attracting either events that have been hosted or some of those 210 events are ones for future years that have already committed to Cleveland. And the direct impact of those events on the local economy, I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, is now well over $800 million. And we do impact study on every event that is hosted in Cleveland. We don't use any multipliers. What this is as conservative a figure as we can get of dollars that were spent in Cuyahoga County that would not have been spent in Cuyahoga County if it were not for the hosting of those events. And we only include events where the Sports Commission played a majority role in attracting or hosting that event. So there are others, the Mid-American Conference Basketball Championship, terrific event. They're a good partner of ours. We don't put it on. We didn't attract there. We don't count it. We don't count things that we didn't do. I would tell you that nearly all of those 210 events, if our organization didn't exist, that number will be close to zero. We have a lot of partners in the U.S. Olympic world, NCAA, a lot of large events that you may have heard of having been in Cleveland, the National Senior Games, the Gay Games, the International Children's Games, the Transplant Games of America. All of those are owned by organizations, usually nonprofits, and some of them exist for that one event. And we compete to not only host those events, but importantly to run them, do what is needed on behalf of the community to fulfill our obligations and do more. And and you'll see here a lot of logos of events we've hosted. But I'll give you a good example. The NBA All-Star Game was just here a year ago. We had a great partnership with the Cavs Sports Commission. The city was very involved. It was the Sports Commission, our small $2 million a year nonprofit organization, that signed the contract with the NBA to be responsible for the roughly $5 million in community obligations that Cleveland or any city that won the right to bid that was responsible for doing. We managed the process. We raised the money. Bob was a big part of doing that. And we had great partners along the way. That way, we don't take full credit, but we're the ones who shoulder that responsibility. Now, thankfully, that event brought $140 million in direct spending, more than any other event this community's ever hosted, even more than the RNC. The size and scale of NBA All-Star Game was incredible, but I would venture to say without us, that event wouldn't have been able to be pulled off in our community. These are the types of services that we offer, and we offer these for free to events that come to Cleveland. Now, when we're hosting events, I'll show you a list. On average, let's say we host 8 to 10 national events a year. We can't do all of these things for all 8 or 10 events. We don't have the bandwidth. But our job is to find out with every event, whether it's the World Yo-Yo Championship or it's NBA All-Star Game, or it's funny, there's a lot you've heard of, a lot of them you haven't. NCAA Regional Cross Country Championship. There's all kinds out there. One way, shape, or form, we will offer these services at no cost in order to help make their event more successful. And that's the reason, by almost every measure we have in our industry, number of events, size and scale of events, economic impact of events, I'd say for the last 10 years running, Cleveland remains always one of the top 3 or 4 cities in the United States. And we compete against everybody. And our community does a fantastic job of getting behind these and understanding the value. So this past year, these are the events that we hosted. These are all national events. That's the economic impact next to them. Total impact was very, very big. Our biggest ever, $156 million, but you see that $141 million was the All-Star Game. Most of the events we host are $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. And those what we consider in sort of sports parlance are singles and doubles all the time. That's the core. And then we get these big events. If you look at, so this year, for instance, a smaller year for us, which is only 8 national events. Funny, 10 years ago, this would have been a big year, but this is now kind of, I'd say 8 events is probably our normal year. No blockbusters. But if you look at the JVA Rock and Rumble, good example. That's a youth volleyball tournament that we attracted to Cleveland, was here over 2 separate weekends, filled up every square inch of our convention center, public hall, and between the 2 weekends, over $6 million was spent in our community from about 500 youth volleyball teams. So that's, probably 5,000 kids and their parents and their grandparents all coming in from out of town. Not big, sexy stuff, not written about in the media, but brings in a huge amount of dollars. And you ask all the businesses around, they're supported. Believe me when I tell you, they know that it's coming. And then we have years like next year. We already have 12 national events. This is actually going to grow. And I'll point out, too, that Bob mentioned the NCAA Women's Final Four taking place this coming weekend in Dallas. We were awarded this event 5 years ago. We had to raise a lot of money to make sure it happened. And that event is going to fill up every seat at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse over 4 days. This year in Dallas, 900 national media are coming. This is an event now. It's wonderful to see the women's game getting the kind of attention it is, starting to rival the men's, which is great for us. And it is. Next year probably will be considered the most important women's sporting event in the world. It'll be right here in Cleveland. A lot to undertake to put it on, and we're doing it. Then also the Pan Am Masters Games taking place in July. Think of it as the world's Masters Olympics. We will have upwards of 10,000 athletes, plus 10,000 friends and family from all over the world here for a week. It will be the largest international gathering in our city's history. Probably half of those people will be from outside the U.S. So imagine 5,000 people from all over the world, not including U.S., plus another 5,000 friends and family. Those are the kinds of events that are hugely impactful. And then we do a lot of community programming around them. And it's a big undertaking. First time it's ever being held in the United States. It's owned by a group that is affiliated with the International Olympic Committee in Switzerland. And why did they choose Cleveland? Not because they loved Cleveland. I think the city worked for them. We're going to be all over Cuyahoga County. We have 31 hotels contracted. They did it because we can do it, because we can pull it off. Their organization has 3 staff people in Switzerland. So this year, the European Games are in Finland. It's in Cleveland next year. They needed to know they had a community and an organization who could pull off what they need to be pulled off. And so it does help that we've built this entire infrastructure around the ability to host these events. And without that, Cleveland simply would not be hosting it. Wrong way here. I'll talk a little bit about our budget. Our annual operating budget is a little bit under $2 million. That's what it takes to run the organization. Our overall budget each year, depending on the events we host, can be higher. So when the NBA All-Star Game money flowed through us, that was almost $5 million more last year. Basically, money in and money out. We had to go raise money from the state. The county pitched in a little. The city pitched in. Most of it we raised privately for the hosting of the NBA All-Star Game. We got nothing out of it other than what the community gets out of it. We don't make money on it. We're a nonprofit. We do this on behalf of the community. But our budget each year is under $2 million a year. We've been fortunate for well over a decade, but we do not take it for granted. Both the city and county have supported operationally the organization. The state kicks in a couple of different ways, and the majority of our budget is raised privately by companies in the community. And I would say they don't get anything directly out of it. They do it because they believe that we provide a significant return on investment for the dollars raised. We just finished a new strategic plan. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it really is I think what the point is, and we'll make sure this presentation is shared. I think what is really meant to be shown is we are very strategic about our work. I mean, we take very seriously how we run the organization. Are we maximizing our capacity? Are we maximizing our capabilities? Are we doing everything we can to tap into the people in our community, and many times outside the community, people with ties to Cleveland, that can help us really maximize what we do. And each of these goals has key performance indicators. We have a public dashboard, and we report that every quarter to our board. We also, this is something that just is something we're very proud of. About 2 years ago, through a board task force, and now it's actually a standing committee. The organization represent our executive committee. We call our Equity and Inclusion Playbook, and we really make sure that quarterly we are looking at, are we the best we can be as an organization, and the work that we do through what we do from equity and inclusion standpoint in all ways, in our internal operations. What we talk about is our workforce, our workplace, and our marketplace. And really, and it's really helped us a good deal. I mean, it really helps make our events more successful, and quite frankly, show these events rights holders that that this is a critical issue for us and very important for us. And we found that it is, it quite frankly has made us a lot better. So I'll stop there and be able to answer any more detailed questions, but really this was more about a thank you and to going back to show that we believe that for every dollar the county invests in our organization, we are providing several fold back in tax revenue, and we feel we know it's the same with both the city and the state.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dave, for the presentation. Any questions or comments from anyone? Councilwoman?
One through the chair. Some of the events that you posted for 2024 looks intriguing, and I would like to attend. So what's the earliest we can expect to start looking? I guess we go on Positively Cleveland's website.
So it's actually, Sports Commission, Destination Cleveland are totally separate entities. I'm in a unique position that I run both nonprofit organizations. It happens in a couple places in the country, but they're completely separate boards, separate staff, separate funding. So this case, it's on Sports Commissions. It's clevelandsports.org. And just call. The one that tickets are more difficult is Women's Final Four.
That's what I was looking at.
but let me know early enough, and we'll see what we can do. We're also doing a lot of other events in the community around it, like big luncheons. We're going to bring in celebrities and other things where we have more flexibility. So with Women's Final Four, and it's interesting, those are the kinds of events where, as an example, this comes in, NCAA controls all of it. It's their event in our city. Our job is to make it better. But reach out to me, I would say, in the next few months on that one, and I'll definitely try to do everything I can.
Yeah, I'm interested in the Women's Final Four and the Pan American Master Games. So
Great.
if I can buy my tickets now, then I won't
We got you
get it
covered.
over with.
We got you covered.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. President?
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. CEO times two. I call David Bo Jackson a two sports superstar. That's how I've been referring to him for 20 years. I've always recognized the Sports Commission and the Film Commission as the two single entities that were the greatest return on the dollars that were invested from the public. And if you see what happened with Columbus, they stripped the tax credits away, and it kind of decimated that particular revenue stream. So bar none, you are the single biggest, and you should be applauded for that. And you've been doing it a long time. The Pan American Games, that's a clapping on steroids. Like the way you described it, it's going to be incredible. And the whole world is going to be watching it. Is the Brown Stadium's going to be where they?
We'll actually be doing that at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, the big opening ceremony.
Yeah, because I'm just with the track and stuff and all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay. The one thing that we talked about, or I experienced before, branding the city of Cleveland and using the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and looking at all the logos I remember the last time the women's Final Four were here, it was a focus on that. And I'm just trying to get an update maybe on, because each one of the entities have their own logos. And are they open to us promoting our city as well as their own brand through the chair?
Yeah, Councilman, thanks for the comments, yeah, we do a great deal. So a lot depends on which event and how they're structured. Each Olympic governing body operates a little differently, and NCAA and so on. But it's critical for us to try to enhance we try not to leave up to chance. Our people can have a great experience here. So we get the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and a lot of our other institutions very involved regularly. So whether it's hosting events there, trying to offer discounts, creating micro website pages for that event where they can go on and get specific information, again, sometimes different audiences. You know, the Pan Am Masters audience is different than the youth volleyball audience, but critical for us because, you know, what we found from a lot of research is the change in perception of people who've never visited Cleveland versus those who had is dramatic. And so we know we have a real opportunity here by getting them here, by attending the events, participating in these events. You know, most of these have thousands and tens of thousands of people each time, that we have a real opportunity to change a lot of minds about Cleveland. And in doing so, again, we have an opportunity that they become potential future residents, potential future investors, want to come back again as tourists. So all the things you're talking about are critical for us.
Mr. Chairman, one more, if you don't mind. The natural, it's totally separate, right? Positive Cleveland Sports Commission, that's not true. They've worked.
I would say that
operations.
I would consider them, we found a lot of synergistic
Oh, it's
ways
beautiful.
to operate. It works very
The
well.
way you're talking about, you get the sports here, but Positive Cleveland sells it for the long term.
Yeah.
And what I've learned over the time, having the privilege of working with you, the work is data-driven, best practices, keep trying to understand what's the feel of Cleveland, how can we get it out there? So can you want to talk about briefly how data-driven or you are as at both entities?
Thank you. It is. I personally am just such a strong believer of using data to guide your actions and not just gut. I mean, look, in anything in management, gut can be part of it. But we have to, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to understand your customer. And I may not look at them, I may think I know what you councilman want or you councilwoman wants in terms of a place they may want to visit, something they may want to attend. My assumption probably is not right. And so we have to use data. We have to understand who the potential customer is as an organization, or in the case of Destination Cleveland, for people who may want to visit as a tourist, understanding as a consumer what people are looking for and how do you best present ways to solve their problem. And sometimes data is through a lot of research. Sometimes, quite frankly, and I know this sounds silly, it's asking them what they want. Mm-hmm. I mean, I tell you, it's so interesting. So how a lot of our business works is a lot of these organizations, they put out RFPs, requests for proposals. So they'll send it out, and there might be 30 cities that bid to host the women's Final Four over a 2-3 year period of time, or whatever event it is. And they'll talk about what their needs are, but we'll sit down and say, how do you measure your success? When you're done, when your event leaves Cleveland or any other city, and I can't tell you the number of times that people say, wow, I've never been asked that question. Which, from a competitive standpoint, I'm glad nobody's asked it, because to us, it seems so fundamental. We talk about reading between the lines. How do you sometimes the data is through very hard research. Sometimes it's through probing the right question. So when we give a proposal, we can say, how are we solving your problem? And what can we do as an organization, as a community, even for the youth volleyball tournament, so you're going to be more successful than you might be in Columbus or in Nashville or in Tampa or other cities that we're bidding against. And I think those fundamental issues of understanding your customer through any kind of research you can is critical to being successful.
And I'll just close it with, that's why you're so successful. All the glitter and glam we see, but it's the hard work that you and your staff put together to have these results. And I'm very proud to have the ability to be working with you for a long time. I look forward to doing it and continue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
President.
for the ongoing friendship and support.
Any other questions, comments? All right.
Thank you
Again,
for the
thank you,
time.
Dave. Thank you. Any miscellaneous business? If not, our meeting is adjourned until 5 p.m.